G'day. How you going? Can you tune into my weird Swedish Australian accent? Yeah, a few of you are nodding towards the front. Ladies and gentlemen, just a quick piece of social research before we kind of get started here today. I'd like you to raise either your left arm or your right arm if you're wearing an analog watch on your wrist today. Just raise your arm for a moment. Look around the room, ladies and gentlemen, just to span the horizon of all the people who love legacy. You can take them down now. But my question is this, and I love analog watches. I have a bit of a fetish for watches. But my question is, why do we insist on wearing these Swiss-made watches today? In a world of digital disruption where we have digital time all around us, digital time that's actually accurate, precise, and automatically updates no matter what time zone that we're in. Digital time that we set our analog watches by every 24 hours if we have an old watch, right? Why do we still insist on wearing these old school devices? That is not a rhetorical question. Why? Style. Fashion. Yes, for me it's a little bit of man bling, I do admit it. Why else? Habit, absolutely. Did anyone get given your watch perhaps by a loved one? Yeah, fantastic. So either it has like deep emotional value for you or you just have to wear it. I mean, it's one of the two, right? Yeah? We still insist on wearing these analog devices because of emotion, because of emotional reasons. And my main argument today is that in our digitally disrupted future, the old school, the face-to-face tradition, and the personal touch, the analog, still has a place. Because even though our minds, our rational, informational minds might have gone digital today, our hearts are still enduringly emotional and analog. Now, as a commercial futurist, I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with digitization and with technology. I love technology because it helps people like Max Harpham. Max is the son of my colleague, Emma Harpham, who I love dearly and I've worked with for years in my management consultancy. Max is her wonderful son. He's into extreme sports, he skateboards, he drives a go-kart, and he's kicking backside at school. This is amazing because Max was born profoundly deaf. But because of a great Australian technology, a great Australian innovation, the cochlear implant, of which he has two, one on each ear, Emma and Aaron, her husband, are able to connect with him, to pass down their traditional family values. His teachers are able to connect with him and teach him to a level that's on par, if not above, the other kids in his school. This is what technology can do in terms of connecting with the hearts and the minds of tomorrow's children and tomorrow's customers. But let me tell you why there's a hate part of the love-hate relationship. And let me take you back to my native country of Sweden just for a moment. Sweden is not, by the way, famous for its watches. That's Switzerland. We used to produce really, really good tennis players, Bjorn Borg, Stefan Edberg, and the like. Today, we suck. Roger Federer, unfortunately, is Swiss. Also, we suck at making good chocolate, and we don't make good watches. Now, this watch ad for Tissot Swiss watches is set over a map of Sweden. Somebody in an advertising agency somewhere in the world should have been fired for this ad, right? But let me take you back to the center of this analog watch just for a moment. And let me take you back in history to the year 1917, when a man by the name of Georg Johansson moved to this vista in Stockholm, Sweden. He'd left the drought on his farm in West Gothland to explore commercial opportunity in the city. This was a city just 5 years post the 1912 Stockholm Olympics. A city sort of commingling the urban and the rural, tradition and some modern technology, where the horse, the buggy, the bicycles were still dominating the urban vista. And Georg Johansson moved there to take up an apprenticeship in menswear retail. He'd grown up on his farm on the Göta Kanal, seeing the boats from the Atlantic coming up and down the canal, shipping materials, textures, patterns, black and white clothing, because that's all they had back then. And he was inspired by menswear retail. He took up apprenticeship in Stockholm and eventually he set up his own shop. Georg Johansson loved the personal touch, the face-to-face connectivity, the figuring out of the seasonally adjusted girth. It gets cold in Sweden in winter. Tailoring clothes that were just bespoke tailored just for you. This was a time pre-YouTube and pre-selfies, where watching a camera on the street was still a technological marvel. This shop is still around today, and in Georg Johansson's transition from the rural environment to the urban environment, he changed his name from Johansson, the son of Johan, this sounds very Viking. To the city, he took on the name to indicate his provenance from the farm of Sör. He became Georg Sorman or Sorman. He's my great-grandfather, and as you can tell, he must have been a little bit of a futurist because he wears a really good pocket square and has an awesome haircut. This store, this bricks and mortar environment is still around today, nearly 97 years later, and because of advertisement via analog media like this, they won the hearts and the minds of yesteryear's customer. Now this advertisement, by the way, is pre-feminism. Today, not as accurate, not as precise, it fails to win the imagination of tomorrow's customers. Today, my mum, Birgitta, runs this quaint little store on Kungsholmen in Stockholm. She looks fantastic for 106. But her business environment is being digitally disrupted today, because the same customers and their offspring go into the store, they'll hang out with Hassan the tailor with his little measuring tape. They'll say, "Thank you for the service. Thank you for measuring my sleeve length, my seasonally adjusted girth. And thank you for picking up and personally helping me shop the colors that suit my particular palette." I might just make note of those. Let me think about them. And I might come back later. And they leave the shop to the sound of a lonely little bell. And they exit the store. And if they have the professional courtesy to my mum, they only place the order on eBay once they're around the corner. This is disruptive to her business model. It's changing things. For the guys from Bunnings, you know this from a retail environment. It changes and it challenges my mum's very identity. And she tells me, "Anders, jag är rädd om jag börjar digitalisera allting, att jag kommer förlora allt." Which is really profound if you speak Swedish. And what it means is, "Son, I'm afraid if I start digitizing everything, well, I'm gonna lose everything." And I think there's kind of a dual meaning about identity in this. See, my mum hates change. And I think sometimes we all do. I mean, who sort of struggles with change just a little bit? Okay, there's a few of you. I think we all do. I mean, who's ever been through puberty? I mean, a bunch of you. Or who's thought about ever changing a partner? If the partner is sitting next to you, just hold your hands underneath your bum right now, right? I mean, not like physically exchanging them, but selling them on the concept of change. Like, we should go to the gym more often this year. I mean, this can be a really tough conversation to have. Selling change can be incredibly hard. And my mum is trying to figure out right now, like so many of my clients, and yes, she is a pro bono client, and she goes, I should be a pro bono client because you were a bloody big baby. Which is kind of gross, but she, no one like your mum to tell you like it is. But she's trying to figure out in front of herself whether she should stay analog and traditional or whether she should go more digital. For her, it's a binary choice of black and white. And I go to Mum, imagine if you took all that bespoke wisdom, the face-to-face connectivity, the generations of being able to listen and to connect with the hearts and minds of your customers, and you built a fantastic digital web store, a great customer relationship management tool so you could send out targeted advertisements just for one person because you know that they were really into purple ties. Wouldn't that be amazing? And she goes, son, you don't understand. Our clients don't know how to use the internet. To which I respond under my breath. So they only understand how not to buy from you online. Ladies and gentlemen, let me give you the terms of reference here for a moment. The analog world versus the digital world. The analog world is 9 to 5. It's about the personal touch. It's about face-to-face. It's about word of mouth recommendations. The digital world is about interface to interface. It's about the social connect. It's about 24/7, 365. It's about the high tech, and it is about winning not just hearts, but minds, the increasingly digitized minds of tomorrow's customer. So what is digital disruption, and what is it doing to industries in Australia and around the world today? For those of you who are the statisticians in the room, let me give you the terms of reference here for just a moment. Let's take a look at digital disruption and how it's changing communications and marketing forever. Some of you might remember the Yellow Pages, that increasingly thin publication. This is its usage over the last 10 odd years. The long-term trend in newspaper advertising revenue from the 1950s, adjusted for inflation, up to the turn of the millennium, patent expiry. The decline in print advertising in Australia, 42.9% over the last decade. You can see where this trend is heading. Think about the music that you access and listen to. Well, back in 2000, only 4% were other, not even digital downloads compared to CDs, 93%. In 2005, 9% digital downloads. And in 2010, 47% digital downloads. And these were only the legal ones. What we're dealing with here is Moore's law of the doubling of computing power, digital power, every 18 to 24 months compared to more slow, analog, linear growth. And of course, social media networks like Facebook are complying with these laws, growing at exponential rates, even just up until the last few quarters, slowing off ever so slightly. And in 2011, we reached a global tipping point with more smartphones and tablets being shipped globally than PCs and notebooks. This is a huge inflection point because it helps the consumer, the customer, mobilize and take matters into their own hands, spending their digital retail dollars increasingly via their mobile devices just outside of my mum's little store in Stockholm, Sweden. So this is disruptive, right? And when we look further ahead to the next generation, what really concerns me about digital disruption is that more 2 to 5-year-olds today know how to play Angry Birds on their iPhones than know how to tie their shoelaces. Now, I'm not judging any of the parents here in the room today, but that is profoundly weird. If you thought Gen Y was a little bit strange, how weird are these guys going to be? They've never known a world without the internet. They are going to be totally wacky. And in this world, cash may no longer even be king, because Gen Zs of the future don't even know the green stuff or the Australian polymer technology that's so fantastic. Yeah? Because they're never going to have a physical wallet, they'll have a Google wallet where they'll be spending your digital cash. According to Deloitte Digital, what's the next industry that's going to be digitally disrupted? Well, your industry is most likely on this list. On the x-axis, what you have is the length of the fuse until digital disruption hits you. And on the y-axis, the size of the bang. I was working with the real estate industry yesterday, the REA guys, I know you're out here today, in Brisbane. This afternoon, I'm working with hospital engineers, thinking about smarter buildings. And in my book, I have case studies from my clients in the retail banking industry, from the pharmaceutical industry, from the printing and digital solutions industry, and from the guys I worked with at the $1 Million Roundtable earlier this year in the financial services industries. All industries that are being digitally disrupted. Ask yourself this question about tomorrow's customer. What customer touchpoints can be digitized? And are there any that can never be digitized? Second point, we have digital minds, but we have enduringly analog hearts. Your customers do their due diligence digitally today. And you need to provide them with informational value via digital channels, but we need to enduringly connect with their analog hearts as well. Don't throw the analog baby away with the digital bathwater. Why? Because digital doesn't fix everything. In fact, digital communications can stuff us up. Anyone who's tried predictive texting, you know that the future is a very, very uncertain place. Right? And if I asked you, who really remembers your first digital MP3 download? Who remembers it? Who's not going to raise their hands no matter what I ask today? Okay. But on the contrary, how many of you would remember the first vinyl or the first tape you ever got given? Why is this? I still remember every lyric to Europe's It's the Final Countdown from 1986. I can hear it in my mind. This is pre-karaoke session, by the way. I just really show this slide because when my brother and I are out and about, people go, "Sing us that song!" I'm not going to sound like a broken record here today. But vinyl sales are up 20% year on year for the last 3 years in an age of digital abundance of MP3 downloads and streaming music via Spotify. Why? Because it connects with our hearts. And the sound's much better. Google. If I said Google to you, would you think digital or analog? Digital. So isn't it ironic that in their latest advertising campaign they send us analog printed vouchers telling us that the future of communications is all about digital Google AdWords? Think about this irony. What they are getting is that they need to go digilog. It's not about being analog or digital, it is about going digilog, combining the best of both worlds to win the rational, digitized minds, but connect with the enduringly emotional hearts in the analog world as well. In the book, as I mentioned, you will see case studies like this. Of one of my pharmaceutical clients, they sell, let's call them men's health products. And their big challenge today has been, how do we get some space with the healthcare professionals, with the GPs who prescribe these men's health products? They tell me, Anders, and this is no pun intended for the advertisers, we want to get the most bang for our marketing buck, which is $1 billion. Previously, they left samples, they left brochures, but now they're getting a little bit more clever, spending $1 billion on ensuring that all their sales folks have tablets which the HCPs can engage with. And they find that when the HCPs start playing with the technology, all of a sudden they're more engaged and more likely to prescribe this particular company's men's health products. Some pretty cool innovations in that space. Now, it would be unethical of me as a Swede to stand up here and not talk about IKEA, just briefly. Now, IKEA used to be the biggest printer of analog marketing products, the famous analog IKEA catalogue. They printed more catalogues than the Gideons printed Bibles on behalf of the Catholic Church. And we know that those guys are everywhere. In my hotel room last night. Maybe next time IKEA will be there as well. It would be great bedside reading. But they're being less about pine and more about pixels, or combining the two. But they're not throwing away the baby with the bathwater. They're retaining the essence of that catalogue, but now they're moving into augmented reality. Let's have a look at how they're going Digilog. This is a wonderful, very Swedish-looking family that's trying to figure out whether the IKEA furniture is going to make sense in their particular living room. And via the augmented reality and the technology in the catalogue, they're able to zoom in and look through the augmented reality of their mobile devices to see exactly the way that Ingrid, Anna, Sven, or perhaps Anders, the couch, would look in their living room. They are merging the analog physical world with the virtual reality of the digital world. They are playing in the Digilog space. But they aren't getting rid of what they've always done well. And when we do strategy work with our clients, we look at how do they combine across this Digilog strategy map the best of the old school analog world, stuff that's always worked in your business, because there's traditional wisdom there, right? But how do they also combine it in new ways, in innovative ways, with new touch points? IKEA doesn't throw away the analog baby with the digital bathwater, but it also ensures that it innovates into the future. Now, I started this presentation with the mention of Max Harpham, who's an awesome little dude. I talked about the technology for a moment, the technology that enables him to hear, to learn. But it's to the credit of people, real human beings, analog human beings at the Shepherd Centre, who has taught his family, who has provided audiologist and learning support for Max, face-to-face, that helps him tweak his devices every month to make sure that he can even swim and hear underwater. It's because of real human beings connecting that the technology makes sense. This is something we must never forget in the future. So you might ask yourself, whatever happened to my mum's little shop in Sweden? Well, I'm going to be there next week. I'm traveling out to New York this afternoon to shoot filming for 2 days in Wall Street about the future of money and the future of business process outsourcing. But after that, I go to Sweden, first to work with the Swedish equivalent of Woolworths in their clicks and bricks activities, but then to spend 3 days strategy consulting with my mum, which is going to be tough, yeah? But here's one thing, one simple little thing. You don't need to have IKEA's budget to merge the analog world with the digital world. Here is what we've done, hiring a couple of students. Why? Because they're free. Simply asking my dad, who's a retired colonel in the Swedish Army, which is a really good career move because we never go to war. But in a family business context, he's now a free male model, very Zoolander. Here he's doing a simple four-in-hand tie knot, capturing the digital minds and the analog hearts of tomorrow's customer. You don't need to speak Swedish to get this.
Det är faktiskt nästan perfekt för de här lyssnarna.
And he's so proud that he gets the 2 lengths of the tie nearly perfect. And he goes, Anders, and I did it on live television. This story got picked up by the main digital Swedish newspaper, tweeted everywhere, Facebooked everywhere in Sweden, and ensured the 2 best months of sales in 10 years for my little mum in Sweden. Now, Stephen, I can't prove the correlation between the 2, but my gut feel is that there was some kind of correlation. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to challenge you, when you do look out at this digital landscape and these waves of change around you, to not think of them as just disruptions that challenge your very identities. Don't think about them as separate analog or digital, but think about what that sweet spot of communications is for you. How do you combine the best of great Aussie innovation and technology with the best of the human touch? How do you go digilog in the way that you win the digital minds and the analog hearts of tomorrow's customers? Get a feel for the underlying currents of change around you right now. Figure out your positioning, your unique positioning in the marketplace, and make sure that even on an unguarded beach of uncertainty where there's no flags to swim between, you safely get back to shore in the future. Thank you very much for hanging out here today.